Welcome to Partner Path, a podcast that unpacks the venture capital and growth equity ecosystem from a junior perspective. Young entrepreneurs and investors have already had a massive impact on the industry, having started unicorns and launched billion-dollar funds. We discuss these success stories and more by sharing perspectives and advice from some of the industry's most prominent role models. This podcast expresses our views as of the date published and does not represent the views of and is not endorsed by any company for which we work. Before we get to the episode, Laura and I are excited to announce a partnership with Overlap. Fresh out of Y Combinator's summer batch, Overlap is an AI-driven app that uses large language models to curate the best moments from podcast episodes. Imagine having a smart assistant who reads through every podcast transcript, finds the best parts or parts most relevant to your search, and strings them together to form a new, curated stream of content. That is what Overlap does. I personally use Overlap to explore content on future podcast guests and highly recommend it as another diligence tool for investors. Check out Overlap on the App Store today.
Today we are talking with Rahul Sonwalkar, founder and CEO of Julius. Rahul was a software engineer at Uber before Julius was founded. Julius is your AI data scientist where users can quickly analyze, visualize, and transform data. Welcome, Rahul.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
This is going to be fun. Okay, let's get right in. You graduated early from UT Dallas to work at Uber. Maybe let's go back to college. What was Rahul like in the 3 years that you were at UT Dallas? How would your friends describe you?
They would describe me as doing a lot of pranks, like building things, always doing stuff outside of the classroom. So I like building projects, launching them. I tried to start a company back in college, but also like just in general, I like things like social engineering. So I think that's how they would describe me today.
Okay, what kind of pranks?
I did a lot of stuff. For example, like I would see like a TV crew parked up somewhere. I would just go talk to them, improv, all that, but also like building stuff with like programming just for the sake of like fun and like not a means to an end. So one of the first things I built was a tool to automate the Chrome like T-Rex game when you lose internet. No means to an end. It's just is fun.
That's awesome. So what was the moment or the thought process when you decided to graduate early? And then how did you end up in Silicon Valley? Because it's very different from Dallas, I can imagine.
Yeah, for sure. So I made friends at these hackathons in college that ended up
in Dallas.
I would go to these different hackathons outside of Dallas because Dallas kind of like lacked that startup community. People just trying to build things, hacking on projects. I would go to, let's say, Yale for the hackathon and like Stanford, etc. And these people had, intros to recruiters at big companies. They referred me. I ended up in San Francisco. But as soon as I got here, I kind of missed the building aspect in those big companies. So I ended up quitting like within a couple of years.
Where did you start your career at? What exactly were you doing?
My career started back in college when I built a thing called WaterView. Think of it as Supabase before Supabase. I wasn't technically talented enough back in college to like actually make it happen. And the second thing I learned at these hackathons was, I would get these people at hackathons to use my thing to spin up their project very quickly, have a database, have like a backend server running without having to spend a lot of time spinning it up. But those people never really like took the projects outside of hackathons and built into real products. So we had like users that never retained. That taught me a lot about just building, marketing, customers. I would say that's where my career started. And then I ended up at Facebook after that, working on misinformation, and then Uber working on pricing after that.
And you obviously had the itch to build again. Walk us through the transition to Julius. And something you also mentioned was failing early and failing fast and not being afraid of being wrong. So how did that lead you to Julius?
I feel like one of the most freeing things you can do is being okay with being wrong and being okay with failing, because it frees you up to like try more things. It's kind of like freshman year of college in your first semester. It's actually way more advantageous for you to get an A- or another grade, but a straight A, because then you're just no longer obsessed with like a 4.0 GPA. You can just kind of go and explore different classes, learn things, have a much better time outside of class in college. It's kind of like startups, I think, are similar because, not being afraid of failing and trying just frees you up to explore, and being okay with failure, I think, is very important.
Where do you think this humility is derived from?
What humility?
What you just mentioned, you're smart, obviously. You knew how to build at a young age, and you garnered a lot of attention and I think notoriety around the awesome products that you've been able to build. And so sometimes that can lead to folks maybe being overly confident, but you're extremely humble. I'm enjoying the conversation so far. I think what you just said, a lot of people are afraid to fail and afraid to admit that they're wrong. I played college soccer, so I grew up with very, very tough feedback. And I also being wrong, so then I can correct my behavior and hopefully be better.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone thinks that way. So where does your humility derive from?
Yeah, I think some level of pain and suffering from being wrong and failing, but also I think it's important to know that because you're right about one thing doesn't mean you're going to be right about everything. Having open-mindedness and humility, like constantly learning new things, adapting yourself is, I think, something I care about deeply. I think maybe scratch like 1% of surface area that I want to scratch. So there's a lot to learn today.
So do you have mentors or people that you look up to and take feedback from?
I often rely on like founder friends that are both a few stages ahead of me, but also sometimes a few stages behind me. I'm also trying to understand like what are they seeing in the market? What are they learning from the things that they're trying? One thing I learned as a CEO is your job kind of changes every 6 months. The things that made you good at your job till now are no longer, scalable. You have to like learn new things. For example, pre-product, you're just trying to build something and get it out there. After product, you're trying to like find if people really want to use the thing that you built. How do you get it in front of them? After PMF, you're trying to learn how do we recruit the smartest, best people, convince them to join the startup that kind of has a thing working. And all these different stages, you're learning something that you haven't done before. So I think it's really fun to talk to people that are a few stages ahead of me, have been through that cycle, but also a few stages behind me, and just learn what they're seeing in the market and they're learning on their job.
I'm sure you think about it similarly with hiring, surrounding yourself with people that are maybe smarter or have different attributes that you might not have to push yourself and push the company.
Yeah, I think so. I think, a big thing had to overcome very early on was overcome my ego. As an engineer, you always want to be pushing the most amount of code. If there's a hard problem to solve in the company, you want to be the first to dive on it and solve it before anyone else on the team does. But then you also have to learn that when there's like 5 really hard problems, it's important to have a group of people that you can put a lot of trust into, and they're probably better at you than solving those problems, and you should probably trust them with it. So finding people that are smarter than you is, I think, very important.
And what was the decision to do the solar founder route than bringing on a co-founder?
I think a lot of times people that are starting companies, they're blocked on finding someone to start a company with. Like you talk to them and they tell you, oh, I have this idea and I want to work on this idea, but I'm not working on it because I haven't found a co-founder yet. So you're basically putting all your energy into finding a co-founder. And I think what you should be doing instead is putting all the energy into like talking to potential users, building an MVP, putting it out in the market. And along the way, you might find people who vibe with you, want to work on the ideas with you, and they may join you as co-founders, may join you as early employees. But I think it's just being blocked by not having a co-founder, I think is not a reasonable reason to just kind of go all in on the idea that you have conviction on.
Yeah, definitely. And if someone ends up being a fit as you're kind of going along your journey, great. If not, then you can fill the positions around you with super talented people.
Absolutely. I think it's actually easier to attract people when you are fully immersed in something. It's kind of like attraction where people believe that, oh, this thing is kind of working. This person is just so obsessed with it. He's putting all his like energy into it. I think that's just a much better way to attract talent than, just talking to a bunch of people, asking them, begging them to join you.
How do you think Julius is a reflection of who you are?
As a product or as a company?
As a company.
I think, the company is very open to trying things, building things in an MVP of ideas, features, launching it maybe too early, and then kind of like iterating on the fly. So that has allowed us to do things that most companies spend like months to build. For example, our infrastructure, we serve over 1 million Jupyter notebooks a month. And we have looked at some companies that were serving a similar infrastructure for a different product. And, they barely scaled to our level. And it's because they wanted to put in a lot of upfront investment into like building something that nobody wanted. I think the reason we're able to scale so quickly is because we're just constantly iterating and launching and learning from users. So the team is very okay with a feature not working out because the quickest way to know is just to try it.
So are you the type that would rather try a feature with a small group of beta users, making sure it's 100% right before launching publicly, or launching publicly and then iterating on the fly?
If that's the spectrum, I'm more towards the latter, which is launching early, iterating on the fly. Of course, now that we have lots of users that do a lot of their important work on Julius, like their tool that they spend hours of their day on, we can't launch something that has bugs, obvious bugs that might break a core flow for a user. But at the same time, we want to maintain the core flow, maintain the shipping velocity, and try as many things as possible.
Is there a concern in the back of your head that people will churn, or there'll be negative feedback if something's launched that is not 100%? Just given that you're working with data, and we should get into what Julius is solving and how people are using it, but I'm sure some of the data is pretty proprietary.
Absolutely. We take data security very, very seriously. We process hundreds of thousands of data sets every month. And something that we have invested in since day one of the product. The shipping velocity is primarily on the product engineering side, and we do not take any risks with our infrastructure and data security. So what we have learned from users is when they see product features that are new and in beta, it gets them even more excited about the product. They see that this product is constantly improving and getting worked on, as opposed to something that's like kind of static. If you think about Google Docs, I can't remember the last time I saw a new feature in Google Docs, and maybe like a Gemini thing, just kind of Google pushing onto you. But with Julius, you're always seeing new things pop up in the product, and that gets users pretty excited about it.
And I think this is a great transition into the founding story of Julius that we should have touched on earlier. But I know that you mentioned the limitations of OpenAI's code interpreter, which was one of the leading factors to start Julius. So I would love to break down what you're solving, how people are using it today.
Yeah, so Julius is an AI data analyst. It helps you analyze data, get insights from it. You can transform data. So if you have a lot of messy data, you can use Julius with just simple language prompts to restructure it, transform it, and visualize it. So that's Julius.
And were you not thinking, wow, OpenAI has some serious manpower?
Yeah.
They're going to move further into the space.
Absolutely. So we were working on data analysis before OpenAI, before ChatGPT actually, but we hadn't found a fit yet. We knew, but Uber and Facebook are companies that value data science very deeply, like Facebook feed and recommendations. And at Uber, it's pricing, routing, matching, all that is data science driven. And so when I left Uber, I realized these coding models back in GPT-3 days are getting really good. OpenAI Codex was performing really well. And imagine if we could give the power of analysis to every knowledge worker. We didn't know what that was going to look like. So by the time OpenAI launched Code Interpreter, we had launched 4 different things. And we were going to launch Julius a few weeks after OpenAI launched Code Interpreter. And so when we launched Julius, we thought, people told us, you guys shouldn't bother. OpenAI has billions of dollars. They have the world's best researchers. They have massive brand presence. They have a massive go-to-market team. Why would you even bother launching Julius? Try something else. But what OpenAI is missing is one key ingredient, which is focus. They have everything from search, Sora, DALL-E, Canvas, data analysis, all these features packed into one product. And turns out who you're really competing with is not OpenAI. You're competing with a PM at OpenAI who has to answer to 10 different stakeholders, has to compete with 10 other PMs to get surface area for his feature. And because of that, it really slows down their ability to iterate on user feedback and ship product, that lack of focus. So we stuck to our guns. We kept iterating, kept talking to users. And within a month, we had a much superior product that allowed people to do analysis in a much faster, easier, and more accurate way than they could with ChatGPT. And the rest is just history.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor. Laura and I are thrilled to announce a partnership with Grata, an intuitive deal sourcing and diligence platform. Keep missing out on private market deals? Ditch the Rolodex and get Grata. Grata's AI-powered platform provides accurate data, deep insights, and time-saving workflows that help get more deals done. And it's trusted by over 500 firms and 3,000 deal makers, including myself. I've personally used Grata in both my deal sourcing and diligence workflows and would recommend their tool to any investor across private equity, growth equity, corp dev, or investment banking. we've negotiated a special offer for our audience. Mention PartnerPath to the Grata team during sign-up, and you'll get free executive seats for your partners and MDs included in your subscription. Now, back to the episode.
Where does it stand today if you compare the two?
If you analyze real data for your business, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a manager or leader in a company, or whether you're an individual contributor in a big firm, you want to trust Julius because of speed, because of accuracy, and because of all the workflows and features that we have built into the product that allow you to do the job in a more reliable and faster way. And that's what we've heard from our users.
And you also grew to 300,000 users within 6 months of launching. Very impressive. What do you think? Were there any marketing hacks or go-to-market leads that you explored that maybe helped attributed to the impressive growth?
We definitely tried a lot. What helped in the beginning was talking about the product and talking about what you're building and all the things that you're building into the product. We kind of underestimated how big the need would be among knowledge workers to quickly analyze your data and getting insights from it. We thought it's maybe a small need, maybe some data scientists wanted. But turns out, whether you work in finance, marketing, operations, all these people have data on their hands and they're using that data to make better decisions. And that felt like tapping into an ocean of demand when we launched. In the beginning, we had a ChatGPT plugin to validate the idea. Can we compete with Code Interpreter in ChatGPT plugin store? And would users pick us over Code Interpreter? That's also a feature in the plugin store. And what we learned was very quickly, people were trying Julius's plugin in the plugin store, and they were coming to Julius instead and just using Julius as a product. That kind of helped build up the flywheel. We got a lot of users, iterated on the feedback. Later, we got kicked out of the plugin store, for obvious reasons. But by that time, we had enough of a user base where people were spreading the word, bringing their colleagues onto Julius.
And what are some of the main use cases that you're seeing today on the platform?
Yeah, there's of course always some the long tail of use cases when you take AI and code execution. And so Julius, for context, we do Python code execution. Every 24 hours, Julius writes and executes over 2 million lines of code. And we serve over 1 million Jupyter notebooks each month. Our users have made over 8 million data visualizations on the platform. And so when you take AI and code execution, use cases are there's a lot of very cool use cases. But what we have seen where Julius delivers the most value to our users is 4 things. One is analyzing data. So you want to get insights from it. You want to know who are my top paying customers, or how do my top paying customers compare to what sales rep is working with them, or so that's analyzing data, getting insights. Second is charts and visualizations, being able to visually understand data and present it in a report or in a meetings, charts. Third is data manipulation, data prep. Turns out most of the data in the world is not clean. It's messy. It's kind of formatted in all these different ways. For example, one of our customers, they're a hospitality PE firm. They manage 86,000 hotel rooms. And their revenue operations team gets all this data from these different POS systems, and they have to spend a ton of time getting all that data in consistent format every month. And they use Julius to automate that with just 5 minutes of a workflow. So cleaning, merging, sorting, transforming the data is another use case. And the final one that we've seen deliver a lot of value to users is advanced data science. So forecasting, regression, being able to do all that with just simple prompts is pretty powerful for a lot of users.
I got to ask, how are you maintaining the infrastructure for the workload from the third use case of the hotels?
We have a solid infra team in-house. The way we think about Julius is Apple. Apple is able to build much superior computers because they make the chip in-house. So we work on the infra, we work on the product engineering, the UI, the interface, everything except the models.
What models are you using?
We are always experimenting with new models. The ones that we would probably end up using a lot in Julius are OpenAI and Anthropic's models, and some Gemini here and there.
And are the switching costs pretty low right now between models?
The switching costs are pretty low, which I think is great reason to build an AI product company. The switching cost is super low. A lot of these prompts, they do transfer between models. And it just basically means that the model there is probably going to get commoditized. The price is going to keep going down. And that means you can just build a great, awesome product on top of these models.
And so who else besides OpenAI have folks been comparing you to?
So the funny thing that happened after we launched Julius and we got a lot of traction is OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini. All three companies launched a competitor data analysis product. And every time they launched one, we thought we'll die. We probably don't have a shot at succeeding. But we kept our focus on building just a better thing. And even though some of our features got copied, it's kind of like copied in visually, but not in essence. They don't work cohesively as well. So every time these people would launch a product, they would actually go out and educate the market that now you can use AI for data analysis. And then users would go try their product, realize it doesn't work as well, but then they Google AI data analysis. What's the best product for this? And they realize Julius is the best product, and they end up becoming subscribers. So we kind of need bigger companies to launch similar products because they help us with market education, helping educate the market that you can actually use AI for data analysis. Excel has Copilot that's built in, but doesn't work really well. It's kind of clunky.
What about Tableau?
We haven't really heard much about Tableau's AI stuff from users that come to us. Users have come to us from Tableau for sure, but it's primarily because they're able to get insights much faster and not primarily because they tried the AI product and didn't succeed. I think Tableau is kind of like a secondary priority at Salesforce today. It's not a...
Yeah, there's been a lack of innovation in terms of the product functionality.
Absolutely.
Over the last few years. I remember when I started my career in consulting, Tableau and Alteryx were the go-to tools.
Yeah.
And it was so hard to use. And eventually, once you get the flywheel going, then you try to add new data and try to merge it with the current table schemas.
So
I mean,
painful.
impossible.
Salesforce, a company famous for the innovation anyway,
Oh, they're doing agents now.
Yeah.
They have other priorities.
Yeah.
What is Julius not doing today that you're hoping to do later this year on the longer term roadmap?
We have seen a lot of users use Julius for reporting. You analyze data, you get insights, you want to turn it into a report and share it. So we're going to build reporting with Julius. We're building real-time collaboration with Julius. Turns out analysis, when you get an insight, you don't keep it to yourself. You want to share it with people. And so being able to see the collaboration and being able to collaborate real time with an AI assistant is something that I think is going to be really, really meaningful. And we're building that in Julius. So you should see that very soon. And
exciting. I've been using Julius and I really been enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally. Imagine like being able to invite your colleague to the analysis and they're able to collaborate with you in the product.
Especially as we're doing diligence for companies.
Yeah.
It's very convenient to upload the data and then interact with it real time, like you're interacting with a colleague.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we're focused on. And then a lot of stuff in workflows. We're hearing from users that they do, for example, you do diligence in Julius. So like you have these like 10 things you want to do every time you pick a new company. If you could turn those 10 things into workflows and then just push a button and have the AI do the analysis for you is something that we're focusing on. So all those things coming very soon.
What about languages? What are you compatible with today?
Today we support Python and R. Those are the two ones that we found we had a lot of demand for our users.
It seemed like R was it was unexpected, the demand.
Absolutely. When we first launched, within the first few weeks, we started hearing from users that they want R. And we would tell them, guys, you can do the same analysis in Python. Like it's pretty much the same thing. But we kept hearing from these people. So last summer we launched R kernels, which was a whole effort, went really well. And we have some of our very highly powered users use it with R.
That's great. How have you thought about what does the transition look like today? I'm assuming it's a bottoms up, probably you're working through a PLG motion. How do you get people to turn on monetization?
We have had paying users since like the first week of the product. And what we found was individuals are a much faster decision maker when they realize, oh, this thing can save me a few hours of work every week. And it's usually part of the work that kind of sucks, having to do stuff manually. And what people do have, though, is curiosity about data. So we take their curiosity and we help them get to insights as quickly as possible. For example, the VP of marketing at Fortune magazine, he uses Julius. And for him, it's like he can either go to his data science team and create a ticket and wait for a response in like a day or a few days, or he could get that same response from Julius within minutes. So it's kind of like unshackling all these knowledge workers. So we have this PLG motion, people hearing about Julius from their colleagues, from their friends, signing up for it, paying for it. And then, as I mentioned earlier, data analysis is pretty collaborative. Like when you get insights, you want to share it with people. So it's kind of built into the product. What we're also seeing is like leaders adopt Julius. And when they adopt Julius, they're inviting their whole team. They realize, oh, this is so much more productive to do analysis in Julius. So let me invite my team and do it in Julius. So the hospitality P firm I mentioned, the senior director of revenue operations there, he uses Julius, and he and his whole team use Julius now because it's just much faster for them.
Seems like it's a very department agnostic product.
Absolutely. It is, yeah.
Are you frenemies with the data science team?
We have a lot of love from data science team too, because they get inundated with these requests for quick insights and like, hey, I just got asked this in a meeting, like, how do I respond to this? Could you get me an analysis? And what this allows them to do is focus on the deep long-term data science projects and not be inundated with these ad hoc requests. So they in fact end up recommending Julius, or they end up setting up Julius for their cross-functional partners, like the finance team, the marketing team, the product team. So that's what we've seen.
So there's not a world where you replace data scientists, more so supporting their efforts.
There's a world where we cannot replace data curiosity. And as long as there are people in an organization that are curious about data, that organization is going to be very successful because they're going to be data-driven. And those data-driven people could be data scientists, could be marketers, could be finance people, could be product people, designers. So we cannot replace the data curiosity.
And in terms of, I'm assuming as the models improve, these tailwinds are probably massively impacting Julius. Accuracy, speed, probably just all feeds nicely into your results.
Absolutely. As the models improve, I think there's two kinds of AI startups, one that benefit from the models getting better and the others that don't. For example, if you had a copywriting tool, like it's really hard for you to benefit from an O4 model, or let's say a GPT-5 or GPT Next, whatever it's called. But if your product relies on code generation, smarter models are good at reasoning, coding, benefit directly. Yeah.
That's great. And I know you're very lean. Remind me the total headcount today.
We've grown to 12 people now.
Okay. And you've been very cash efficient, and you're building an AI product. A lot of maybe conflicting points of play here.
Yeah.
How do you think about balancing growth with efficiency, keeping up with this fast-paced market?
Yeah. Most of our growth has been through word of mouth and search engines like SEO. And both are very efficient growth channels. Word of mouth is free, SEO is pretty much practical. So
are you talking about the new wave of SEO, of your product being indexed within like Perplexity and OpenAI? Or are you talking about like traditional SEO?
Both. So being the recommended tool for these like AI chat products, also being a tool that helps people do the thing they're trying to do much faster. For example, let's say a Laura that's just starting in venture, Google's cohort analysis. This is her first time doing cohort analysis. And she could either read a blog post on how to do cohort analysis and then do it manually in Excel or some other tool, or she could see a Julius workflow where she can just, with English, prompt and do the cohort analysis directly. The latter is just much faster, adds more value to her stack, and it's something that you want to keep coming back to. So also the traditional SEO, that's how we work.
How have you thought about optimizing the responses in this new wave of AI SEO? We're seeing a ton of companies pop up that would offer their services to you to be optimized for ChatGPT, for example.
I think ChatGPT is only going to grow in usage. It's going to continue taking market share from Google in terms of search. I find myself using Claude or ChatGPT often when I have a question that I know I don't need real-time information to help answer. So I think it's a smart investment to do early on.
Are you spending dollars there using some of these companies?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Do you think that you would and it would be attributable to your bottom line?
I'm very bullish on investing in it. I don't know about the timing of it. I think we're organically being recommended by these AI chat tools, but there's definitely like something more that we can invest in down the line.
What do you think is the biggest risk today?
For Julius?
Yeah.
It's, we have a roadmap in front of us. We have users that love the product. And I think we're in a pretty lucky position that the market that we're after is massive. Analysis is such a core need. So really, I think the biggest risk for us at this point is like we mess it up. We fumble the ball. So what we do is we're heads down, executing, staying humble, talking to users, and shipping.
Do you work in person?
We work in person 5 days a week, yes.
Do you think that's important for the stage of your company?
I think so. I think it's very important, especially when things are shifting so fast. It helps with the velocity a lot. It helps with building camaraderie. It helps with getting to decisions much faster, but sometimes it also gets distracting. So we have this room in our office that's like just quiet room where you can just go do deep focus work and not hear your teammates like yelling and jamming on a whiteboard.
Yeah, not doing vibe coding.
Not doing vibe coding.
Cool.
Yeah.
You've hired 12 people. You didn't grow up in the Silicon Valley ecosystem, but you're building a very exciting AI company where it's hard to attract talent anywhere, but especially here because there's so many AI companies and now is a great time to be building in the Bay. So how do you think about hiring, recruiting top engineering talent?
I think it's easier if you find people that vibe with the mission of what you're building. It's easier if you find people that are not like just chasing shiny objects and truly believe that, an AI product company can be built on these models. And when you find those people, there's maybe like 2 or 3 companies that you can go work at. For example, Cursor or Julius, Perplexity. And from that point, it's just basically making sure it's a mutual fit. They're excited about the problems that we're working on. They're excited about the team, the people that they'll be working with. So it's gotten much easier, I would say, if you have a differentiated thesis and a product that actually has users. We didn't hire for a long time. We were a very tiny team of 4 people. That was just heads down on the product. And we didn't hire until we got a lot of users. We were absolutely sure that bringing on more people will actually add value and not slow us down. And that allowed us to be very selective with hiring, going from 4 to 12.
And how do you think about assessing talent or interviewing?
One of the big things we care about is ability to like learn and pick up new things. For example, when we launched Julius, we had to build the infrastructure from scratch. And Matt, our CTO, founding engineer originally, he and some of the engineers on the team, they picked up infra very, very quickly. So you can either hire people that have all the hard skills and all the experience on this specific thing you need, but then a startup, because it moves so quickly and there's new things coming up all the time, those skills may need to evolve. And so the one skill that will always be in need and will always be useful is the ability to move fast and like learn new things on the fly and ship. And so that's something we care about when we evaluate engineers, and our interview process is geared towards that too.
Are there any open roles right now you would like to highlight?
Yes, we're hiring front end and full stack engineers. So Next.js, React, Tailwind, that sort of stack. And then we're also hiring cloud security engineers. Security is something we care deeply about. So we're recruiting engineers who have experience with GCP, data security, Terraform, apply to Julius.
Awesome. Should we end with a quick fire round?
Let's do it.
If you could build in any area that's not data, what would it be?
AI companion.
I mean, character AI at some quick growth. So.
Yeah.
What's the most surprising Julius use case?
We found users at an anti-aging institute use Julius because their statistics team was not big enough. They're able to use Julius to like do, anti-aging data analysis.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What's an AI company you look up to?
Cursor. I think it's similar to us. They're a small team, shipping fast, bottoms up, to users all the time. And they've really built a meaningful, differentiated product on top of these models.
Do you have a piece of advice for first-time founders?
Yes. Don't be in your head too much, just like go out, ship stuff, try things. You'll learn a lot more by just putting yourself out there and building things than you would by, just reading Substacks and like learning about markets and all the macro stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Rahul. This was fun.
This is great. Thanks so much for having me, Laura.